Hey, good morning. Ethan Snow. Welcome to the Donnie B Show. We're broadcasting on the MAGA Locally platform. Sir, do you know what that means? MAGA Locally?
Oh yeah, we're going to make America great again, even locally. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. I asked some people that and they're like, they kind of stumble, but you know, right on. And you're doing it because you're running for the Jasper County Sheriff position. And it doesn't get much more local than that. Uh, could you please introduce our audience to you, your family, and maybe what you're currently doing and why you decided to run for Jasper County Sheriff?
Well, thanks for having me on your podcast. I appreciate the opportunity. So, currently, I am a detective with the Carthage Police Department. I've been a patrolman there, and now I'm a detective, so a little bit of a change in role more recently. So, I started out when I was 18. I joined the military and went into the Air Force for a little over 5 years. I was active duty and I was security forces in the Air Force. And I ended my time there as a staff sergeant. So I had multiple people that I supervised there, and my main job there was either as a patrolman or working in our operations center. So I also helped in managing a flight, is what we called it, in the Air
Oh yeah.
Force, just over 60 people. That was all the people who was working on my shift at the time. So after I got out of active duty, I went into the Arkansas Air National Guard for about a year and a half. And during that time, I went back into construction, which I did before I went into the Air Force. And then I decided I wanted to start my own power washing business. So that was the first thing I did by myself for my own business, which actually went fairly well for me, and I liked doing it. I continued to do electric while I was doing that. And then my dad and I were working on a house of mine that I had bought, and some guy came over and asked us if we did such and such stuff, and we kind of told him we did, but we were doing electric. And so after he left, my dad and I talked about it, and we were like, hey, we should start Snow's Home Improvements, is what it became, and do this ourselves, because my dad is super smart at the construction area of things. And so that's what we did.
You know, it
And
takes a special character to open up your own business, to be an entrepreneur. It's a lot of hard work. I've been there, done that. So anybody that starts their own business, you know, they've got to have that drive within them to make it happen. Because you're not only are you doing the technical work, you're doing the marketing, the advertising, you know, all of it. So I know how hard that can
yes,
be to start something off.
it's definitely not easy. And there's a lot of things that people don't realize that go into it. And you're always thinking about your business and how you can do better. And sometimes even, and especially in construction, because things slow down and you're thinking, okay, I need to get another job lined up, or we're going to be slow for a while. And then you're thinking, because the way that it all rolls with construction, it's very hit and miss depending on what the economy is like and what time of year it is. So it can be
Absolutely.
stressful.
You know,
So
I'm
we
going to backtrack just a little bit on you said you're in the Air Force. Where were you stationed at in the Air Force?
I was stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. That's like
Okay.
Central Coast, right next to Lompoc, California. I know Lompoc prison is a big deal on TV. You
Right.
see sometimes, so people may be able to relate in that way. And I
Were
was
you
there.
married at the time?
I was not married. I was stationed at that base for the entire time I was active duty, with the exception of 2 overseas deployments that I had. So I spent pretty much all my time stateside in California. Got to go scuba
Okay.
diving. Well, not really scuba diving. We
Oh yeah.
free dove and spearfished and
Right.
things like that. So there's a lot of fun things out there that can be done.
Oh yeah. I'm sure. So you finished the Air Force, and then I see the pictures in the background. Looks like you have a lovely wife and a young daughter back there. So
Yeah.
what's your family's name? Your wife and your daughter?
My wife is Kristen, and we've been together for about 10 years now. My daughter is Emma, and she is almost 7 years old. So
Oh, wow.
Chris and I have been together a long
You have a
time.
beautiful family. I can see
We
them
got
behind you
married.
there.
Yeah. I love them, and we have some land where we live, so we like to go out and walk in the field, and sometimes we'll take the dogs out there and run around with them. So it's pretty good to see my daughter growing up out here in the field. And
Are you a native of Carthage? Are you from the
so
Carthage area?
I did grow up in the area. I went to school in Neosho. I didn't,
Okay.
not necessarily Carthage a lot, more Neosho in the Joplin area. But I've been here my whole life except for the time I was in California in the military. So I've been here a long time.
Awesome. And you've been serving with the Carthage Police Department for how long? And now you're a detective. So I know my wife, she always wanted to be a detective. She even wants to, so she watched all the crime shows, all that kind of stuff. She goes, I just want to be a detective. I think it'd be so cool. So I'm sure there's good times and there's bad times in that line of work. Can you expand just a little bit on your experience as a detective at Carthage?
It's definitely a lot different than being a patrolman. I've been with Carthage for 4 years. How I got there was my now wife said, why don't you go do and what you love to do? Whenever I was doing construction and doing Snow's home improvements, because I was starting little things and trying to do too many things at once. And one day she just said, you need to go do what you love to do. And so I said,
Right.
okay, well, I'm going to apply to go to the police academy then, because law enforcement's what I always wanted to do. That's why I went into the military. And now at the Carthage Police Department, like I said, I've been there 4 years, and more recently as a detective, and I love it. It's a different way of going after crime. So as a patrolman, I was very active in trying to get drugs, people with warrants and stuff like that off of our streets. And I think that that's really made Carthage a lot safer. I mean, I've seen a big difference over the 4 years I've been there, because we've had a small group of us that are very proactive in combating crime, which has been great for our city.
I live in Joplin, and so I don't get a whole lot of time over in Carthage, but, we've been battling some issues, lots of, there's always crime, there's always drug use, but we've had an increased spike in uh, individuals that are roaming our streets that are either, addicted to drugs or mentally ill. We have, of course, everybody wants to kind of lump them all into a homeless category if they're roaming our streets. And some of them are really needing our sympathy, our passion, and our support to help try to get them back on their way. You know, I know that's a huge concern of small businesses across Joplin and also the community. How can we help the people that have fallen on hard times, and how can we lend a helping hand, get the right resources to them? And we also look at it and say, well, we have maybe somebody that just happens to be drug addicted. At some point, they made a bad decision. And as I started watching and observing and getting involved, I've noticed that they're not only a drug addicted, but they're a victim. There's drug dealers that target the homeless that have an addiction to get them to work for them, to help them maybe pay for a nightly hotel. So it's a big complex issue. And I know you, as if you're running for Jasper County Sheriff, you're going to have a lot on your plate in the Jasper County area. So, what do you think, and what do you see as maybe your number one, two, and three priorities as you come in? If you win the Jasper County election to be sheriff, what is something that you see that you would like to start implementing, or you would like to make happen in Jasper County?
So first off, like I spoke about with how I operated as a patrolman at the Carthage Police Department, is we have to be proactive. And I think some of that relies on training and education with patrolmen, because sometimes as cops, we don't do as much as we could do, because we aren't necessarily where the lines are. So we operate further away from the line when we don't have the training and education. that we need. So I made sure I knew what I could do whenever I'm out trying to find people with drugs and warrants. And I was very successful at getting drugs off of the streets in Carthage. So we definitely need to increase our training and education so law enforcement's more confident in everything that they do on a daily basis. And that is my number one priority, is doing those things to combat drugs. Because when you talk about people being victims when they're using drugs, if we are stopping the flow to the people who are distributing them, yes, it can move to somebody else, but there's also a low in time before that happens. So, like I said, in Carthage, I feel like we've seen a huge decrease in the crime that we have just because we've been out targeting drugs so heavily, me and a few other officers there that are very proactive in doing that. Another thing I think is important, and one of the main reasons I decided to run for sheriff, is pursuits. So pursuing people in vehicles who are running from us during traffic stops or what have you. And when I see agencies start to pull back on their pursuit policies where they're not allowing them like they used to, I feel like that puts more people at risk than the pursuit itself. And I don't say that we should pursue everybody and just keep chasing them, because most of the agencies around here is we'll follow you until you crash or you give up. And I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to handle pursuit. So when I say that we should be pursuing people who run from us in vehicles for any reason, I think that we need to be intervening in that pursuit. So we need to stop the pursuit as quick as possible, whether that's through a pit maneuver, a grappler system, GPS darts, something that we can prevent them from crashing into somebody and killing them. Because I don't think that we should be allowing that to happen, but we also can't allow criminals to just run from us without consequences either. So those are probably a couple of my biggest things. I want to, I would say for one last one for you to give you three is I want to implement a felony arrest street team. And that team would only be focused on felony crimes, people with drugs, people with warrants. So ideally they would be probably in the cities more, where crime is more dense. In the rural areas it's not as bad, and we would still have the patrol deputies to be doing that job anyway. But for the felony arrest street team, they would really be out. All they're doing is targeting people, criminals who are distributing drugs, have serious felony warrants, and that's going to help, I think, reduce and prevent crime, especially these burglaries where businesses keep getting hit. I just saw something about that in Joplin, and a lot of that revolves around drugs. So if we can reduce drugs, we'll reduce crime.
You know, Ethan, I did about a 90-day study in Joplin. I wanted to see who is roaming our streets. Why are they roaming our streets? Are they drug addicted? Are they criminals? Are they down and out? Are they from Joplin? Are they from outside of Joplin? And, you know, as I was doing this, I ran across a parking lot, Walmart and Range Line right there on, I think it's 13th and Range Line. And there's a parking lot right there. And when I'd go there to take my mom or my wife or my kids up to Walmart, I would see always 7, 8, 9 cars. You could tell that they are living there. Some of them had no license plates on them. One even had a tent, a red tent put in the yard, and they'd been there for 90 days, almost 180 days, because I watched them the entire time. And so I thought, well, you know, it kept growing. And it was almost growing into like an RV camp. Literally. So I went into Walmart and I talked to the manager. Yeah. And I went in there in Walmart and I said, you know, what's going on with all these people occupying? They said, well, we don't own that parking lot. They said the furniture store next door owns it. So I went there and did the same thing. And he told me, no, Walmart owns it. So neither one of them really knew who owned that Walmart. But during this time of confusion between the two businesses, it took a citizen like me to say, you know what? People are breaking into the cars. They're being able to organize informally in this parking lot that nobody knows who owns. So I looked it up on Beacon and I found out that a company in Pennsylvania owned it as an LLC. So then I took my pictures and my information, and the Walmart told me that they had to walk their employees out to their cars because they were scared to death because of how it had grown into a troubled spot. So this is an example of citizens being proactive and working with the police, working with the Jasper County Sheriff's Department. The police, you're far. I mean, you have a lot of area to cover. You don't have a lot of people. You always don't have the best resources. So we have to work with the police department as a community. And that's one of the reasons I even started this podcast, because I came back after being overseas for 5 years and I thought, wow, what's going on in our community? But that's the difference between the community being engaged and being proactive, or just sitting there saying, well, I wish they would do something about it. Well, so I went to a police officer, said, well, sir, that's on private property. The people that own that property are going to have to make a complaint or a trespass charge. But I don't think the community realized. They would tell me they don't like going through there because they don't like leaving their car unattended. They're afraid it's going to get broke into, which was happening on a regular basis. So I just bring that up to say, I think you're right on about something about educating not only the police force, but educating the community on how we can work together to reduce violence, to help legitimate homeless people. But we have to work together. And I really like that idea of yours of being communicating and engaging.
Yeah, and it's sad and unfortunate. And one of the things that I've kind of talked about since I announced I was running for sheriff is I just want a safer community for all of us in Jasper County, including my children, your children, everybody's children who's going to have to grow up here long after we're old. And I don't think that the way that we're combating crime is working right now. Whenever, without going into too many numbers, whenever you see that agencies may not be doing as much as they should be doing, they're not arresting people, they're not solving crimes, which is not giving justice. And it really bothers me when I think about, you can't go to the park and walk through the park and not feel safe. You can't go to Walmart and not feel safe. You can't walk on the sidewalk after dark and not feel safe. And that is concerning to me. And that's why I have said that I think that deputies need to be in the cities more, where there's more people, there's more crime, and I think that's really important. And especially why I want to implement the felony arrest street team, that there would be days and night shifts of that team. So, because when people know there's cops out specifically looking for them, they hide. They don't do it so publicly, like in the Walmart
Right.
parking lot. So I think it's important that we start to do some different things so people can feel safe when they just want to go for a walk along the street in their community, in their neighborhood.
You're absolutely right. And as we start looking at these things, and you're running for probably the most important law enforcement position in the country, the sheriff has the most power, especially in the local community, than anybody. The feds aren't supposed to go into Jasper County without coordinating with the sheriff. And I know I've been speaking with Senator Jill Carter for District 32, and she actually implemented or submitted a bill to provide the sheriff that constitutional, it's a constitutional bill, but to make it more permanent. That way, nobody can come in and change that law. So I think that's a great bill. Having said that, you have so much power. We want to know kind of how you make decisions. I know in the Air Force, where you're making decisions all the time. I was in the Army. I was a captain in the Army, served overseas, and was always making decisions. And if you didn't have a good system in place to collect the information, assess the information, have weighted variables, what was important. Same with these politicians. I asked Senator Carter, I'm like, so what are your weighted variables? If something comes across your desk, is it less free or more free? Is that part of your decision-making process? Is it more taxes or less taxes? What really kind of guides your trajectory on not only your values, but your decision-making? So I'd like to ask you, in terms of decision-making, what's really important, or can you just give us a little insight on how you do that? What makes you tick and to make decisions?
So I've served like most of my adult life, from the Air Force to being a police officer. I've wanted to help people. I've wanted to make my country safer. I've wanted to make my community safer. And all of that stems off of the Constitution. And I
Right.
think that we shouldn't be making decisions that aren't in line with that. And I know that sometimes we get stuff from legislators, and not just from the state level, but from the United States level, that aren't in line with that. And I think that as sheriff, my decision making would be based off of the Constitution, number one and foremost, because that's my job. That would be, I'm the last line of defense for the Constitution. And
Exactly.
apart from, obviously we're going to protect the Constitution and follow it. I think we need to be collaborating ideas from everybody at the sheriff's office, and not just the sheriff's office, but it can be from every law enforcement agency in the area, and say, this is what we're doing. I think we need to do something different. What are ideas that everybody has? And we write those ideas down and pick the best one. And I think you get the best ideas when you put as many brains together as you can. So it doesn't matter from the most newest patrolman to the person who's been there the longest. Everybody's going to be able to provide value for ideas that we
Absolutely.
can implement to help prevent and reduce crime. So I think it's really important. And like you said, working with the community, you guys, I mean, I say you guys, I'm in the community too. We're all just citizens of Jasper County. So,
Right.
but as law enforcement, working with uh, citizens who are out in the community doing things in their daily lives all the time, they can provide insight as well to where we need to be, what we need to be looking for. And we have people who do that for us already. But I think more engagement from people like you who saw a problem and went and addressed that problem is very important to the decision making of any law enforcement agency.
I think Americans across the country, and especially in Missouri, are realizing, when we elect somebody. So you're running. I believe it's in April. Is it April or August? August.
The primary is in August, yes.
Right. So you're going to be up on the ballot against the current sheriff. And so you have an uphill battle of getting he's well known. He's been there for a while. So getting your message out, it's always difficult for the new guy, how to get your message out. So one, I want to tell you, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, because I think it's important for the people to really get to know, hey, who's running? What are they, how do they think? What are their values? Do they value the Constitution? And that was the number one uh, character trait that I was looking for. I wanted to make sure that no matter what happens, you're going to uphold the Constitution, because you are the last line of defense. And a lot of people don't realize how much that sheriff, that's his main role, is to uphold the Constitution, and he is the last line of defense for the community. So, one, my hat's off for, I appreciate you serving in the Air Force. I know how difficult that can be, and even more so difficult on your wife and family. Serving as a police officer, it's difficult these days. You go out, you don't know if you're going to come home. I mean, here in Joplin, we've had some serious, we've had some issues. People don't just say yes, sir. Oh, here's my driver's license anymore. Sometimes they're pulling out firearms, and they're running. It's like the wild, wild west sometimes. So I know it takes a lot. It's a special wife and family that can see you leave in the morning or that night shift, and then not worry about. I'm sure they worry about you all day, making sure, wanting to know you're going to come home safe. So my hat's off to you, and I personally like to thank you for serving us in both the military, as a Carthage detective, a police officer, and hopefully as the new Jasper County Sheriff. So as we wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like to, I'd like to know how people could get a hold of you, Facebook, or do you have a website? Any way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, thanks for having me on. Thank you for your service in the Army as well. It they called us the 1%, because 1% of the population volunteers to be in the military to help protect our country. So I think it's very important, and I think veterans are very important as well. Not and I mean everybody has their place in our society, and I think
Right.
everybody is important. So I'm not trying to discount anybody in general. So what if to be contacted though? You can go to my website. It's ethansnowforsheriff.com. You can go to my Facebook. Just search Ethan Snow for Jasper County Sheriff. You can find me that way.
Okay.
All my stuff's on both platforms. So both of those will be very informative as to why I'm running for sheriff, how I believe we should be more proactive, how we're going to prevent crime here in Jasper County. And I think it's important that everybody sees those issues before they go to the ballot in August.
No, I agree. You know, Ethan, maybe we could get you on maybe in a month or so and actually do some live call-ins. I could have some of the constituents of Jasper County. They might have some questions for you. You know, they could call into the show and you could answer them. Uh, would you be up for something like that in the future, possibly?
Yeah, I think that would be great. I would love. I mean, I'm ready to answer any questions anybody has. So uh, I I I I'm not just making things up on the fly. I know where I stand and what my values are for why I'm running for sheriff. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm more than willing to talk to them and answer anything they have.
Awesome. So, Ethan, I'm going to air this. We have a website. It's magalocally.com. We also have a YouTube channel at magalocally, Podbean, so Facebook. We have multiple outlets. So, as soon as we finish this interview up, I will upload it and we'll distribute it. So, hopefully, we can do some regular interviews with you to talk about even issues that arise between now and your election. I think the citizens would love to know your thoughts on those specifically, because if they're going to vote you over your predecessor, they need to know how you think about things, how you make decisions. And I think you did
Yep.
a great job this morning kind of letting us know. So I wish you the best. And the last minute's yours. So anything you would like to say to your audience, now's the time.
I mean, I think we covered a lot of things, and it was a great start, as you say. I think moving forward, we could do some more, get more in depth, and maybe even talk to people. And like I said, I think it's important that people go to my website, go to Facebook, and actually look at the numbers, why I'm saying what I'm saying, why I think it's time for a change. And my slogan for my campaign is "A safer future means tough on crime." And the reason I came up with that is it's pretty self-explanatory. If we want to have a safer community and neighborhoods for ourselves and our children, we're going to have to start being tough on crime more than what we're seeing. Where we're getting soft on crime, things are getting turned upside down and backwards, and a lot of things that
Yeah,
are being done in the country and in our area right now. So I just really want people to have an open mind, go look at uh, my information, and hopefully realize that we can be doing some things differently that could be a lot better for us.
I agree. Well, Ethan, I know you're a busy person. I know you got family and you got duties. Your phone's probably been ringing off the hook since we've been on here. So I'll cut this right here. I want to wish you the best of luck and hopefully we'll get you on soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too.